Hello everyone and welcome to this month's professional development seminar. My name is Technical Sergeant Landis and today we'll be going over the Airman's Comprehensive Assessment, also known as the ACA. Overview, we have the reference on the Airman's Comprehensive Assessment AFI 36-2406. Feedback, we're going to be going over what feedback is, what it's used for, the actual form itself, who has access to the ACA, timelines within the ACA, and the information that you're going to be putting into it. So first things first, what is feedback? Feedback is information about reactions to a product, a person's performance of a task, which can be used as a basis for improvement. So feedback can be positive to that individual, it can be negative, but either way it's not supposed to be used for disciplinary reasons. And feedback is meant to be a stepping stone for improvement for that individual. And most importantly, feedback opens a line of communication for the receiver and the communicator. So with feedback, how can members formally give feedback? This leads directly to the Airman's Comprehensive Assessment itself. The Airman's Comprehensive Assessment is a way for members to receive formal feedback. It's a formal two-way communication between the rater and ratee, i.e. the supervisor and an airman. Everything within the Airman Comprehensive Assessment can be used in an EPR, such as what standards you've given, goals, expectations, and if they were met. This form is mandatory for all regular Air Force members and Air Reserve Command members, which is us, and that is for individuals Airman Basic through Colonel. The Airman Comprehensive Assessment forms that are used is based on the rank. So for Airman Basic through Tech Sergeant, you're going to use the AF Form 931. Master Sergeant, including selects, through Chief Master Sergeant are Air Force Form 932. And Second Lieutenant through Colonel is going to be Air Force Form 724. So who has access to an individual's ACA? An individual's ACA may not be reviewed by anyone other than the rater or the ratee and authorized personnel. These authorized personnel are going to be the rater's rater, any command support staff, first shirts, squadron group commanders, force distributors, military personnel, flight personnel, command chief, final evaluator, and functional examiner or Air Force advisor. And these are all things that may be reviewed due to EPRs. So what are the timelines used within the ACA? For initial feedbacks, these are going to be completed within 60 calendar days of supervision. So if you just received an airman that you're supervising, you have 60 calendar days from then to give the initial feedback. So for us and TRs, traditional reservists, you have to make sure that within 2 UTAs you administer an initial feedback. This is required for all members, Airman Basic through Colonel. Chief Master Sergeants and Colonels, the initial feedback is the only feedback that is required. Next is midterm feedback. This is going to be midway between when you started supervising and when their projected closeout is for their EPR or OPR. So for us, if we have EPRs every 2 years, midterm is going to be 1 year after initial feedback. Airman Basic, Airman, and A1C under 20 months, it's going to be every 120 calendar days until they finally have an EPR or if they get a new reporting official. And finally, the end of reporting period feedback is going to be 60 calendar days prior to the closeout of their EPR or OPR. And this is where you're going to review and discuss with the ratee everything that was in the ACA that you've gone over, such as the standards, expectations, goals, and if those were met, and then establish expectations for the new reporting period. And for the timelines for initial, midterm, those are required unless you are part of the Air Reserve Command pending separation or discharge. And some additional feedback timelines we have is if the ratee requests a feedback, they might feel like they are confused about what is required of them or just kind of want to see where they're at within the reporting period. They can request a feedback and that will need to be accomplished 30 calendar days after the request, or 60 calendar days if they've already requested one prior to that. And the other is a rater requested feedback. And this is essentially when deemed necessary, whether it be positive or negative. You know, if they're meeting all the goals, maybe you want to set up new goals, or if they're in some form of negative aspect, you might want to let them know. And these are the same timelines regardless of status, whether that be active duty, Guard, or reserves. So here we have an Air Force Form 931. We're going to go over how to actually fill out the form. So sections 1 and 2 is fairly simple. The rater is going to fill in the individual that they're rating, their last, first, and middle initial, rank, unit, and what type of assessment. So whether it be initial, midterm, follow-up, ratee requested, or rater directed. Section 3 is to be completed by the ratee. And this is going to be a Y for yes, that they believe that they are meeting the requirement, or no, that they need more information. And this goes over what they're responsible for, the accountability within the unit and the Air Force culture, and the understanding of oneself. And once they've completed that, they will bring it back to the rater for sections 4, 5, and 6. And once the rater has the form, they can go over section 3 and answer any questions within the self-assessment portion. Section 4 is the airman's critical role in support of the mission. This is going to be where the rater explains where the ratee fits throughout the unit and their role within the mission of the unit, or the base, or Air Force-wide. Section 5 is the individual readiness index. This is going to be filled out either R for red or G for green, red being that they are currently non-deployable, G for green meaning that they are deployable. And you're going to need your AEF indicator as well. You can speak with your UDM to get your AEF indicator. Section 6 is performance. So this is going to be their job performance, leadership performance, fellowship performance, and any training, essentially if they are meeting those requirements. And you can fill this portion out together, rater and ratee, and explain why or where they fit throughout this section. And one thing about section 6 is that if they are new to the unit, new to the career field, this portion will not be filled out, because you can't rate someone that doesn't have any experience in the job, or you have not seen them work the job. Same thing with section 7 and 8. This is followership, leadership, and whole airman concept. You're going to rate them at how they are as a follower or a leader, as well as fitting within the whole airman concept. And finally, section 9, which is one of the most important sections. This is where you get to know your airman as a rater. It gets a little more personal, but you can kind of see what their goals are, how their personal life is, if they have any stressors, if they have a mentor, how they feel about the Air Force as a whole. And one thing about section 9, if it does get a little personal, you can make an MFR and write on section 9 CMFR. That way all this individual's information isn't just sitting on the form, and you can kind of tuck the MFR away and keep it with the Airman's Comprehensive Assessment if it needs to be looked at further. So once the ACA is completed, the ratee is going to sign the form, the rater will sign the form, the rater will copy the form and give one to the ratee, and then it will be filed by the rater in some form of a folder, whether that be on a drive somewhere or just a ratee's folder, and it can be used as supporting documents for future EPRs within the time frame. And once again, overview. Reference AFI 362406, feedback. We went over the uses, the forms, who has access to it, timelines, and the information within.